Well, hello everyone out there in Truthmore land. Welcome back. So today we're having an old friend of the show on. He usually plays us a song. He's going to do the same today, and then afterwards we're also going to do the same thing we usually do, which is talk about the end times and how much closer we are to them than the last time we talked about them. So without any further ado, I want to say hello once again to Mr. Steve Mashni. Thank you, sir.
Thanks
And anything new going on with you before we start with the song, or do you want to just get right into it?
Got my girlfriend with me. She's something new in my life, a blessing from God, and then I think you may have told you my father passed away.
I had heard about that.
And so.
Yeah, sorry to hear.
So, but everything's good. God's good.
Alrighty, man. Well, you had a song prepared for us.
I wrote this song a couple of months ago. So. Going up the mountain with that load on your shoulder. Wasn't my burden, my hurting in the words that I said. When you look at me, I know you look right through me. But tell me, did you take it up so I could lay it down? Gentleman's knocking at the door that he never will break open. Though he could, he never would, he leave it for the owner to decide. Do they know when they use that fence to lock you out? It's the same one that locks us up inside. Jesus, I need to talk to you a while. I know you know everything I'm gonna say, but I've got to get it out of my mind. I need to know that there's a reason for me. I need to know that there is love.
All right.
Thanks, man. It's kind of a set of, I'm doing a lot of things with the fifth and sixth string, the bass strings lately.
Yeah, man, I like that.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that bridge at the end. It was very good.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I owe you a lot because my first 5,000 view video was on your show.
Man, that was a good one too.
Arabic Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, what was that when we were talking about the Nephilim?
You know what? I think it was.
Yeah. If you guys want to hear a rockin' version of Stairway to Heaven in Arabic, check out the Nephilim Fallen Angels episode we did together when we were talking about that.
Yeah, that's the one that's got a lot of views on it. Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
And then so anytime you're on, we always talk about Bible stuff in some form or another. A few of those episodes have been about end times prophecies. You've been on a couple times, and it turns out we've been getting closer and closer to them. I remember last time we were talking about how our current president put the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which was a big step towards that end. So what else is going on that has brought these
events,
prophecies closer to coming true?
Well, I've talked here about, I wrote a book called Magog, Mahdi, and the Mark of the Beast. dealing specifically with these issues. And there's, the real big issue in the prophetic world right now that there's a lot of talk about is chapter 38 and chapter 39 of the prophet Ezekiel. Okay. And the prophet Ezekiel lived 2,800 years ago, and he wrote prophecies about stuff that was happening in Israel at the time. This is when Israel was in the captivity in Babylon,
right,
and before they went back to the promised land. But Ezekiel also wrote many things that he says was about the latter days, about the end times. And what's fascinating about chapter 38 and chapter 39, because both of those are about this one battle, that there's this battle where Israel gets attacked. And it names the countries that are going to attack Israel. And at times it uses names that most people won't recognize.
Yeah, some of these are archaic, right? They were what the areas were called at the time.
Right, and they also go back, interesting, they go back to Noah's time, after the flood, because Noah's son had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and then their sons. And so most of them, there's what's called the Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10, and it has the names of all these nations. They go back to that and draw names from there. But some of the names are names that we recognize today. And so when you look at what Ezekiel predicted and you look at what's happening in the news today, it is phenomenal. I'd like to show a couple of slides about some of the names. Let me just say, it says that, this is one of the main nations named in Ezekiel 38, which is Gog and Magog, which I think a lot of people have heard about. It's very popular. Yeah. And if you go back to, you can go back, these are like the great-grandsons of Noah as Gog and Magog, but they became great nations after that. So, what we see from Gog is that it is a great nation, and that it also is a leader in the world. It's a powerful nation that leads and arms other nations.
Okay.
It's very specific, is a leader of a nation or an empire. Now the empire is called Magog. Gog is like the leader.
Okay.
So Gog would be the leader, and then Magog is the nation itself. And so, so who is Magog? And so could we go to the next insert here? Okay. These are some facts we know from the Bible about Magog. It's in the far north. It refers to it as being far north from Israel, from the promised land.
Yeah.
Okay. They were later came to be associated with a group of people called the Scythians. Okay. And they lived north of the Black Sea and north of the Caucasus Mountains. East of the Caucasus Mountains. And so these are some of the facts that we know about them from history.
Yeah, there's really only one country that meets all of that description.
All those criteria, right. And listen to what it says, because when you read this is the prophecy. And just listen to it and see, just from this, if you can guess what the nation is. It says, God is speaking to Gog. He says, get ready, be prepared, you and all the hordes gathered about you. Take command of them. So it's a nation that commands other nations, and after many days you will be called to arms, weapons. Yeah. It's a nation that commands other nations. It's a nation that arms other nations. And so the pieces, is very clear here. It begins to fall together. We'll go to the next insert. Here's a map of Scythia from a long time ago. Okay, you can see.
Yeah, there's no real question there. That's Russia.
Yeah, that's Russia. Scythia is, you could tell that area north of the Black Sea right there, and the Caspian Sea as well there. Yeah. And so, it's pretty clear that when you're talking about Magog and Gog, you're talking about Russia. And so what we see in the prophecy is that this country, Magog, is like the leader, and God is speaking specifically to them, saying, I want to deal with you, and you and the hordes, the people that are coming with you. So there's nations that are coming with, let's just say Russia.
Yeah, whoever is allied with.
Yeah, that are going to be part of the attack. And could we see the next insert? Who is with Magog? it names who is with Magog. Now, most of the names are from the Table of Nations. They're from the time of Noah. So I didn't really want to focus on them. But there's one that's named that we recognize the name.
Yeah, still today, Persia.
Persia, which is Iran.
Mm-hmm.
So it's telling us Persia will be with them, all with shields and helmets and with its troops and many nations with you. So it's not just Iran, but Iran, the first nation mentioned is Iran, which gives it a prominence, being the number one. And it's interesting that it doesn't use the ancient name, it used the current name for it, which was Persia, which is still used today.
Interesting, yeah.
Even in the time of Ezekiel,
Mm-hmm.
that was used, but it's still used to this day.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that Iran and Magog, or Russia, are going to be together in the Middle East. And they are there right now. They're in Syria. They've been there for 5 years.
Right, yeah.
And
this is all scary stuff. And and to see it coming together is just so strange.
yes.
So what have we had recently in the news?
Yes.
It was like a month ago now, right?
Yes.
Not very long ago. There's been some skirmishes in
Right. And
Strait of Hormuz. Okay.
Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
And if I could just do one little detour before I talk about that, because
Okay,
I
sure.
just want to, because there's another group of nations. There's two groups
Okay,
of nations.
yeah. Let's get all of our
Yeah.
future combatants together.
Okay, so we have the first alliance. That first alliance is Iran and Russia. This is in Ezekiel 38. The first group of nations, Iran and Russia. There's a bunch of other nations as well, but these are the two main nations,
Yeah.
Iran and Russia. So, today they are aligned together. They're together in Syria. They're together in Lebanon. They're together in Iran, of course, Iran and Iraq. And they're always together, and it's like there's an alliance. But there's another alliance that Ezekiel talks about. Ezekiel talks about that Russia and Persia are going to come together to attack Israel. But then it says there's another group of nations that's standing on the other side and watching. They're not attacking, but they're watching, and they're talking to Russia. If we could put on the next, this is the other alliance.
Okay.
It's called Tarshish and its cubs. Again, those are names that go back to the time of Noah. A lot of people, who is this? And it also names Sheba. This is what the scripture says specifically. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish and all the young lions thereof shall say unto you, unto Magog, are you come to take a spoil? It's like they're going to Israel because of the wealth that's there. Sheba and Dedan is very easy to know because that is the Arabian Peninsula, which would be Saudi Arabia. And it's interesting that the number one Shiite power is on one alliance and the number one Sunni power is on the other alliance.
Other side, yeah.
Ezekiel foresaw this separation between the Sunni and the Shiite because the Shiites are with Russia and the Sunnis are on this other side.
And then this would have been 3,000 years?
Almost 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
It's 2,800 years ago. And
and then Islam came about
1,400 years ago.
Yeah.
So this was 1,400 years before Islam came, so.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking 2,800 BC.
No, it's 2,800 years from now.
So, okay,
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, Ezekiel was like 800 years
but
before Christ.
But it was still a very long time before the thing actually happened.
1,400 years, yeah. But what's interesting about this, Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. The question is, who is Tarshish? Who is Tarshish? Sheba and Dedan, we know. It's Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and it's very clear, today where they are. But could we put on the next insert? Here's a map of Tarshish. Tarshish is, in Scripture, there's very famous from the book of Jonah, if you remember the guy that was eaten by the whale, swallowed by the whale.
Yeah.
And that when God told him to go preach to Nineveh, he wanted to get away from God, and so he went on a ship towards Tarshish. He wanted to go as far away as he could in the other direction, because Mosul would have been to the east. He wanted to go to the west. Tarshish is always to the west. And So who is this Tarshish? It's been a great mystery. A lot of people have different theories about who Tarshish is. But what we do know, can we put on the next insert? These are some facts that we know about Tarshish. And this all ties into what's happening today. So I just want to give this background so people know what Ezekiel said about it. Number one, it was a very wealthy, flourishing economy. They exported silver, iron, tin, and lead through the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are like the Lebanese ship,
the seafarers.
Seafarers. Tin is very important because tin was used in making bronze, and it was worth a fortune in the Eastern markets. And so tin was very significant export from Tarshish. And then Tarshish is always associated with the West. There's a Bible prophecy in Psalm 22. It says, the western kings of Tarshish and the islands will bring him tribute. So it's to the west. They actually considered Tarshish to be at the end of the world. To them, it was considered like the end of the world, And Tarshish, another thing is Tarshish has merchants, an economic interest in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, them specifically.
With Sheba and Dedan, with their merchants. Tarshish has cubs, like children. Who are the cubs of Tarshish? I believe the cubs of Tarshish are the U.S., Australia.
The other Commonwealth countries. And so we're saying Tarshish is Britain. Yeah.
And if we go to the next one, tin. You see, because the Bible is very specific that tin was one of the main imports from Britain, from Tarshish. And this is just a fact about tin in Britain. It says, tin mining in Britain took place from prehistoric times, during the Bronze Age, Britain, and until the 20th century. Mention of tin mining in Britain was made by many classical writers. Tin is necessary to smelt bronze. So without tin, there would not have been the bronzes, because they take the brass and the tin, they mix it together to make bronze. There would have been no Bronze Age without the tin.
Yeah.
And so it was so significant. And Britain, the name Britannia, it has tin is implied in the name of it even. And so you have this, who is Tarshish and its cubs? Most agree that it is England, and the cubs are the nations, like the number one would be the United States.
Yeah.
And if you look at what's
like the colonies.
Yes. And so if you look, Ezekiel said, okay, can we put on the next one? Okay, this is the second alliance. It's the United States and Iran. United States and Saudi Arabia, and Britain and Saudi Arabia. So you got Britain and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, because it's one of the cubs and the Tarshish. And then on the other side, you got Russia and Iran, which is exactly the situation that we are in right now. And it's exactly what's happening in the news today.
Yeah.
And there's just one other detail I want to point out from the Bible about Tarshish. And it's a very interesting fact about Tarshish, and it also relates, I think, to the news that's happening right now. Could we put up the next insert? This issue of the ships of Tarshish. Tarshish was famous for its ships. The same way Germany is famous for its cars, and different countries are famous for different. Tarshish was famous for its ships. They had the best ships in the world. And, in King Solomon's time, they used to send ships from Israel to Tarshish to buy tin, peacocks, apes, a bunch of stuff. It would take 3 years to go and come back. That's how far away it was.
It'll load up all that stuff.
Yeah, and it was 3 years, it shows you how far the distance was. But the famous thing about the ships of Tarshish, 7 times in the Bible, you hear about the ships of Tarshish. The ships of England. Let me see. I think I explained everything that's on here. Tarshish will bring their sons from afar. And it's mentioned. I think I said all that stuff. So, but a very important aspect of Tarshish is its ships.
Yeah.
And right now, if we were to look at the news and what's happening in the news today.
We just had a massive arms deal with Saudi Arabia. That was within the last couple months.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, I mean,
But if you look at what the problems are right now, it's specifically about ships. And it's specifically about the ships of Tarshish, the ships of Britain. You know, okay, put up the next insert there. Do we have them? British tankers seized by Iran in the Straits of Hormuz. UK officials said 2 tankers were seized by the Iranian forces in the Straits of Hormuz Friday, a British vessel and a Liberian flagship, bringing escalating tensions between Tehran and the West in the region closer to the boiling point, according to foreign reports. And so, you know, it's like you got all of these main players are involved in what's going on right now.
Yeah, and they're in an area of like 20 square miles.
Yes, that tiny little strait, you know, through which they go from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean, you know, and you got all of these main players that Ezekiel talked about are there right now. Mm-hmm. The U.S., Saudi Arabia, you know, Yemen, Iran, and there's one that we don't dare say yet because it's so controversial, but they're there, and that's Israel. Israel has also said, I mean, they're saying that Israel is also there.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, and they're kind of the focal point of this
they're the
whole
focal
thing
point
for both sides. And what was it? The leader of Iran said that if the United States attacked them, that Israel would cease to exist within a half hour. That was,
you know,
that was a soundbite where I was just like, oh my goodness.
You know how real
that would set the whole thing off.
You know, and you think about it, that Ezekiel, you know, even if you were to disregard all of those names, Tarshish and all that stuff, the fact that he named Iran, Persia.
Yeah, specifically,
you know, and just how, of all, there's 190 whatever nations there are in the world, he chose exactly the one that is causing all of the problems, you know, right now with Israel.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and it just kind of shows you that it looks like all the chess pieces are being put into place. And you know, of course, I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible, but you know, they've done research about Bible prophecy because you know there was like over 350 prophecies about the first coming of Jesus. You know.
Yeah, that was a separate episode we did, right?
Yes, that was, I think, one of the first ones we did.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, this was quite like, and matched him one for one.
Yeah, where he was born in Bethlehem, that he would be sold for 30 pieces of silver, that his hands and his feet would be pierced. This is before crucifixion by 700 years. The fact that he would be buried in a rich man's tomb, the fact that he would be killed with transgressors, with other criminals, and the fact that he would rise again, the fact that he'd be in Nazareth, the fact that he'd heal the blind, all of this. You know, they did a study of what's the chance of one man fulfilling 8 of those prophecies. 8. Now, you know, there's 300. Jesus, the chance of one man fulfilling 8 of them. You know, they did this study, research probability, and they said it's like putting a 2-foot wall around all of Texas, filling it with silver dollars all the way up to the top, and then taking one silver dollar and like putting some nail polish on it or something and just firing it way inside of Texas.
Yeah, and then finding it.
And then putting blindfold on, being dropped somewhere in Texas and kneeling down and picking up exactly that one. That's the chance of someone fulfilling 8 of those prophecies. Jesus fulfilled 300 of them. And it was fulfilled exactly to the letter. Just like it was written, it was fulfilled. It's going to be the same way because all of these prophecies are talking about the second coming of Jesus. There's 500 prophecies about the second coming. And we're seeing them being fulfilled. You know what? It's going to be fulfilled just like it was the last time. And this is a big part of it, is this Ezekiel 38 and 39. And, you know, I got a few more slides.
We have about 2 minutes
2
before
minutes.
we need to close in.
Oh.
I'm sorry. But yeah, you'd fire them off.
If we could just put them on, the next one. Okay.
MI6.
Yeah. Fears that Iran used Russian GPS to send UK tanker. right here, remember what it said in Ezekiel? To prepare, take command of the nations and to arm them. Russia's arming Iran. And there's many stories like this besides this one. Can we see the next one? Okay. Okay, this is the, could we go to the next one just because we're so limited in time? Iranian ships pose as UK and US ships to trick rival vessels into the Straits of Hormuz. You know, it's getting into a whole nother issue about the deception that they're playing there. Could we go to the next one, please? Sheba and Dedan, Saudi oil tankers among those that have been attacked. So, you know, it's like all of the main players are right there right now. Could we go to the next one, please? This is what a U.S. government official said. He says, military strikes next. War fears as official reveals that the U.S. and Israel could soon blitz Iran. This guy said this the other day on the news. You know, it was almost like he accidentally said it, you know, but he says that the next step is military operations. Look at the next one. Iran sends an incendiary message, just like you were warning to Israel as war fears surge. Smoke over Tel Aviv. You know, that's the #1 city of Israel, the biggest, or second biggest after Jerusalem, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like someone wrote it this way.
You know what? I'm serious. It's like reading the newspaper when you look.
Yeah, but like 2,000 years ago.
2,800, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then Russia had a nuclear accident in the last week.
Oh, wow.
6 people were killed, you know, because they want to make these missiles that not only have nuclear payload, they have a nuclear engine. By having a nuclear engine, they can go anywhere in the world and fly forever until they want to stop because it has nuclear power. But they keep blowing them up. The U.S. tried to make these, but they had so many accidents they quit, you know. But anyway, so.
Alrighty, Steve. Well, it's always a pleasure and I don't want to say nightmare, but it's always disconcerting having you on because these things just keep happening. Yeah. But it's always a pleasure. Thank you for
having me,
coming
man.
and sharing your music and your insights with us. And until the next time, folks, assuming the world still exists, keep watching, and we'll catch you next time. Take care. Bye. Oh, yeah, and wherever you're going, get there safe.
Get there safe. That's your line, yeah. All right.
Night, everyone.
That went by fast, man.